So the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is how we interpret probability. There are two different ways to interpret probability. There is a group interpretation, which is what we commonly use as the interpretations, and then there's an individual interpretation, and this is the one that we are actually going to rely on a little bit more in terms of probability as it relates to statistics. So an example that we're going to look at, an article was published that said 10% of Americans are left-handed. So let's use this probability of being left-handed to look at the two different ways we could interpret this probability. So the first interpretation, we say that 10% of Americans are left-handed. That is the group interpretation of a probability. It applies the percentage of left-handed people to the entire population. So we look at everybody as a group and we say 10% of you are left-handed. However, the second interpretation means if we randomly select an individual from this group, we have a 10% chance of selecting someone who is left-handed. Or the probability of randomly selecting someone who is left-handed is 0.1. So now this is an individual interpretation. It's taking the probability of the group and applying it to a random individual from that group, from that population. So if I say 15% of Americans prefer chocolate ice cream over any other flavor, that's the group interpretation. I've applied that percentage to the entire group. If I randomly choose one American, the probability that that American prefers chocolate ice cream is 15% or 0.15. So these probabilities, we can apply them and interpret them as they relate to the entire group, but we can also apply them to an individual from that group. And that individual probability is going to be very important as we move forward. That individual interpretation of probability is going to be very important moving forward. So those are two different ways that we can interpret probabilities.